privileges for the duration of his fellowship.
Without objection.
And now, Mr. President, I ask the Chair to execute the order of September 17, 2025, with respect to Senate Joint Resolution 71.
Under the previous order, Senate Joint Resolution 71 is discharged, and the Senate will proceed to consideration of the joint resolution, which the clerk will report.
Senate Joint Resolution 71, terminating the national emergency declared with respect to energy.
There will now be up to 6 hours for debate only, with the time equally divided between the leaders or their designees.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to begin a discussion that we will have over the course of the next couple of hours about this Senate joint resolution, a privileged motion pending before the Senate that I filed together with Senator Heinrich to terminate a presidential declaration of an energy emergency that he issued on his first day in office. The President took a number of actions on his first day in office, and obviously the one that got the most attention was the fact of his inauguration and the celebrations about that. There were other actions that were taken, the pardon of January 6th criminal convicts, and other pardons of individuals, including one notorious drug trafficker. But there was also an action that was taken that did not get attention immediately, but I started to pay attention to a few days after the inauguration, and that was President Trump's use of a statute known as IEPA, an international emergency statute, to declare an energy emergency in the United States. The IEPA statute is broadly worded. It allows a president to declare an emergency when there is a significant and unusual challenge to the United States that stems primarily from a source outside the United States shore. The president has used IEPA to declare an energy emergency. He's used IEPA to impose tariffs on virtually every nation in the globe, and he's also used the statute in other ways. I was puzzled by the president's determination that America in January of 2025 was in an energy emergency, because I went back and checked and found that the United States at the beginning of the Trump administration was producing more energy than at any time in the history of the United States. Where's the emergency? We were producing more oil, gas, and coal than at any time in the history of the United States. Where's the emergency? And even more exciting to me, because of its tremendous acceleration, we were producing more alternative energy, low-carbon energy, geothermal, wind, solar, than at any time in the history of the United States. And we've seen this in Virginia. To give you an example, when I came into the Senate, Virginia was deep in the bottom half in this country in solar deployment. Now we're in the top 10. Offshore wind was nowhere in the United States. Now we're nearing completion of an offshore wind farm off the shores of Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we will be the leaders in the nation and begin producing components that can help us lead in the world when it comes to offshore wind. So where is the emergency? I looked through the president's declaration and could see nothing suggesting the U.S. was in an energy emergency. But you declare an emergency for a reason. And the emergency was declared not because there was an emergency, but because there was something the president wanted to do. And as you read down in the emergency declaration, you found what the president wanted to do was allow a bypass of environmental regulations for energy projects. That's what he wanted to do. And he declared a sham emergency in order to do that. I found it further interesting as I read, well, what is the definition of energy projects that are getting a bypass around environmental regulations? It was not all energy projects. It was oil and gas and coal. But not wind, not solar, not hydropower, not geothermal. Sometimes I hear folks say they're for an all-of-the-above energy policy. President Trump is embracing an all-of-the-below energy policy. If it's not a fossil fuel under the earth, it will not be prioritized by this administration. And so that was the president's action on day one. There's an energy emergency, and we need an easy pass lane for fossil fuel projects, but we're going to make it hard for alternative energy projects. And so I dusted off the statute, IEPA, and found that a single senator, even in the minority party, can challenge a presidential declaration of emergency and be guaranteed a privileged vote on the Senate floor within a set period of time, a prompt vote on a simple majority that cannot be filibustered. And that is what we are doing today. In fact, you can challenge a presidential emergency every 6 months. I challenged the president's energy emergency with Senator Heinrich in March, and it was a partisan vote. Democrats said there's no such a thing as an emergency, it's a sham. Republicans said we're sticking with President Trump. And Senator Heinrich and I issued a warning on the floor in March. We said you are going to see higher energy costs because of what President Trump is doing, and you are going to see jobs lost because of what President Trump is doing. Energy costs will go up because the cancellation of clean energy projects will constrict the supply of energy at a time when the demand is increasing, and the natural economic reaction when you constrict supply in a time of increasing demand is that people are going to pay more for household energy. We were not convincing then. Maybe people didn't believe that our prediction would come to pass, but 6 months later, we're renewing the challenge, and we're here to say that what we said on the floor last spring has happened, and we are seeing dramatic increases in the price of energy for American consumers and businesses, and the slashing of American jobs so that Donald Trump can give an easy pass to the fossil fuel industry. It took a while for these effects to come to pass, but by the time we got to the debate over the reconciliation bill here in this body in late June and early July, it was pretty clear that the only energy emergency is our president. President Trump is the energy emergency. We are debating the spending law, the reconciliation bill, and I'm just going to go through some of the headlines. NPR, power prices are expected to soar under the new tax cut and spending law. Why would they soar? Because that tax cut and spending law reduced all kinds of production and investment tax credits for clean energy projects, making those projects unable to work. Demand's going up, you constrict supply, prices are going to soar. That was the prediction in July. Other articles from the same time. Trump mega bill gives the oil industry everything it wants and ends key support to solar and wind. Most of the power that's been added to the grid in the United States in the last couple of years has been solar and wind. It's cheap, it's native, it's clean, it's sustainable, it works. It's bringing people's costs down, but Donald Trump's mega bill gives the oil industry what it wants by dropping support for solar and wind. That's from CNBC in July. The story about how this was to benefit big oil was revealed earlier in February, shortly after the emergency order went into effect in The Guardian, how Trump is targeting wind and solar energy and delighting big oil. This was all laid out. There is no emergency other than the president himself. This is nothing but a giveaway to the oil and gas interests. Shortly after the passage of the reconciliation bill, EPA plans to end a program that makes solar power available to low-income Americans. Why don't we punish low-income Americans and make their energy costs go up? Why don't we do that? I mean, it's shameful for that thought to cross your mind, much less for you to do it, but that is what the reconciliation bill and the Trump energy emergency put into motion, punishing low-income Americans by making it more difficult for them to access what is now one of the cheapest forms of energy. And oh yeah, there was a prediction We predicted it on the floor in March that electricity prices were going to go up, and then others, when the bill passed, predicted it, but by July 24th, it wasn't just a prediction. Newsweek, electricity prices are soaring under Donald Trump. Inflation is too high because of tariffs and other chaotic economic moves on food, on building supplies, on health care, on pharmaceuticals, but the energy inflation is higher now than the general inflation rate because of Donald Trump's policies. Here's a chart that is one that got some selfish attention for me, how much Trump's big, beautiful bill could raise electricity costs over the next 10 years by state. Monthly bills in Virginia, $250 a month. Other states listed $480 in Texas, $350 in Iowa. We see the prices already going up. It is happening just as predicted. In mid-August, The Guardian says Trump's tariffs and green energy rollbacks push household electricity bills up by 10%, much faster than the core inflation rate, which is going up. So now energy inflation is outstripping the rest of inflation, and it's particularly hard for low-income households. And then finally, just last month, CNN Business, Trump vowed to halve electricity prices, but they're rising twice as fast as inflation. Electricity prices, that monthly bill that households pay together with their mortgage or their rent, together with food, together with health care, all of these are going up. We have a president who promised when he ran for office to deal with the cost of living, the cost to live. And what we see is a short attention span focusing on sending troops into American cities and political prosecutions and firing of career prosecutors in Virginia and all kinds of distractions. And the thing he promised the American public he would do, bring down costs, he's not doing. The only energy emergency in the United States today is Donald Trump. And that's why I am pressing the Senate to vote. Do you want to listen to your constituents? Do you want to decrease energy costs? Do you want to give constituents the ability to have energy that's less costly and that's also cleaner, or do you want to just do what Donald Trump says and embrace a sham energy emergency to give an easy pass lane to oil and gas to bypass environmental regulations? Mr. President, this timing today is bad and good. It's propitious or disastrous. Last night, the administration announced that they were canceling billions and billions of dollars of clean energy projects all over this country, in every state, in Virginia, in Missouri, all over the state, all over the nation. Billions of projects that hire people, thousands of jobs lost. And the projects that are being canceled are going to continue this trend of, in a time of great demand growth, data centers, and all kinds of uses for AI that through searches require more energy than what we were doing a couple of years ago. While that demand is growing, and in Virginia we see it all the time, especially with the profusion of data centers, as the demand is growing, if we are cutting off energy projects and constricting supply, we're only going to accelerate the increases. President Trump has canceled 20 energy projects in Virginia since he became president. An offshore wind staging project in Portsmouth, offshore wind logistics project in Norfolk, a project dealing with electric vehicles in Southwest Virginia, electric vehicle infrastructure apprenticeship program, workforce training program in Northern Virginia. 20 projects. Here's one. In Appalachian, Virginia, a project that would be implemented by the Virginia Department of Energy, which is part of Virginia state government. We currently have a Republican governor. The allocation of grant funds to the Youngkin administration's Virginia Department of Energy so they can do carbon capture and storage. This is a way to take current coal technologies and make them cleaner and more useful. canceled. Enhancing energy resilience, canceled. Hydrogen deployment, canceled. Reducing data center load impacts, canceled. Methane reduction, canceled. Other projects to do carbon capture and storage, canceled. The president has canceled 20 projects just in Virginia, totaling $540 million and costing us thousands of jobs, including jobs in some very important parts of the state that have struggled with unemployment, like Appalachia. Many of these projects, Mr. President, were announced by our governor, Republican governor. Announced these projects with pride. Economic development, manufacturing in some hard-hit parts of Virginia because of tax credits that are available to American innovators. So we can not only do the right thing by the Virginia economy, but lead the world in the development of innovative and clean energy technology, canceled by Donald Trump. And so the prediction, and I make predictions that turn out not to be true, I do have to acknowledge that. I've often made predictions that have turned out not to be true. But on the floor of this body 6 months ago, I said, if this energy emergency is not terminated, we will see energy prices spike and we will see American jobs lost. And I get it that sometimes people might not want to vote on a bill based on a prediction. I could be wrong. It's happening. And it's not just happening in Virginia, it's happening in every state in this country. Energy inflation up, jobs being lost. We can end it here. That is why the privileged motion is available to even a single senator. The privileged motions, and there are many different kinds of privileged motions. In fact, we'll be arguing about another one later tonight dealing with presidential war powers. All privileged motions kind of fit into the same zip code of enabling a senator to challenge potential overreach by the executive. They're very much kind of in the framework of the checks and balances. Executives have power, but the legislature should have power as well, and the legislature should have the ability to challenge overreach by an executive. In this instance, the declaration of an energy emergency when we're producing more energy than we ever have in our history, as a way to give oil and gas an easy pass lane to avoid environmental regulation, is making our environment worse, our costs higher, and our economy weaker. And so when we finish this debate on the floor tonight, I will ask my colleagues to support the resolution to terminate this fake emergency and restore to American consumers the ability to afford their energy costs. With that, I thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
News18.com marches way ahead of the Times of India with 38% more users on native and social platforms. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks, way ahead of the Times.